What if the real reason you feel overwhelmed is not because life is too heavy, but because you refuse to put it down? Ethan didn't notice when it started. It crept in quietly, a thought here, a worry there, until his mind felt like a crowded room that never emptied. Every morning he woke up already tired, as if he had been running all night, his chest tight, his thoughts racing faster than he could catch them, replaying conversations, imagining problems that hadn't even happened yet. And no matter how hard he tried to stay in control, everything around him felt louder, faster, heavier. Even simple moments became exhausting. A text message could spiral into hours of overthinking. A small mistake could echo in his mind for days. And the more he tried to fix everything, the more it slipped through his fingers. It felt like holding on to something invisible yet unbearably heavy, like carrying a weight he couldn't see but could never escape. And deep down, a quiet question began to surface in his mind, one he couldn't ignore, one that followed him everywhere. If nothing outside has truly changed, then why does everything inside feel so out of control? The days did not get easier. They just became more predictable in their weight. Ethan moved through them like someone carrying something fragile yet exhausting. Always careful, always tense, his mind jumping from one thought to the next without rest. At work he would stare at his screen for 10 minutes without understanding what he was reading, his attention slipping away into endless loops of what if this goes wrong and what if I fail. And even when nothing bad was happening, his body reacted, as if something was about to collapse at any moment. At night he would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying small moments from the day. A sentence he could have said better, a look someone gave him, a decision he was not sure about, each thought stacking on top of the other until it felt like he was carrying a weight that grew heavier with every passing hour. He tried to distract himself with music, with scrolling, with conversations, but nothing lasted. The noise always came back. Stronger, louder, more demanding. Even moments that should have felt peaceful, like sitting quietly with a cup of coffee or walking down a calm street, felt restless inside him, as if his mind refused to be still. And slowly, almost without noticing, Ethan began to fear his own thoughts, because no matter where he went or what he did, they followed him, uninvited and relentless, until one quiet afternoon, when the noise inside became too much to ignore, he found himself walking with no clear destination, as if something within him was searching for an answer he could not yet understand. The more he tried to regain control, the more everything seemed to slip further away, like trying to hold water in his hands. No matter how tightly he grasped, it always escaped. Ethan began to notice that even small tasks felt overwhelming. Replying to a simple message could take 10 minutes. Making a decision felt like standing at a crossroads with no clear path, and the pressure to choose correctly only made him freeze. He stopped enjoying things he once loved, because his mind never allowed him to fully be there. Every moment was interrupted by another thought, another worry, another invisible weight added to what he was already carrying. People around him did not understand. They saw a quiet man, maybe a little distant, but inside he felt like he was constantly running out of breath, as if life was moving too fast, and he could not keep up. And what troubled him most was not the outside world, but the realization that the chaos was coming from within, because even in silence, even when nothing was happening, his mind refused to rest. It was in that growing exhaustion, when even thinking felt like too much, that something in him finally gave in, not in defeat, but in surrender, and without fully knowing why, he followed the quiet pull of his steps until he arrived at a small park, where the noise of the world softened, and for the first time in a long while, something different was waiting for him. The park was quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar, not empty, but calm, as if the world had slowed down just enough to breathe. Ethan walked along a narrow path until he noticed a small pond reflecting the soft afternoon light, and beside it sat an older man, still and relaxed, as if he had nowhere else to be. There was nothing extraordinary about him, no sign that he held any answers. And yet something about his presence felt different, like a kind of silence that was not heavy but peaceful. Ethan hesitated for a moment, unsure why he felt drawn closer, but the noise inside him pushed him forward, and before he could second-guess himself, he found the words leaving his mouth, asking a question he had been carrying for so long. How do you stay calm when everything feels like it is falling apart? The old man looked at him with a gentle, knowing expression, not surprised, not rushed, simply present. And instead of answering right away, he studied Ethan for a moment as if he could see the weight he had been carrying all along. Then with a soft smile, he spoke slowly. I will not give you an answer, but I can show you something. And in that quiet moment, Ethan felt something shift, as if he had just stepped into the beginning of something he did not yet understand. The old man reached beside him and picked up a simple glass filled halfway with water, nothing special, nothing impressive, just an ordinary glass that caught the soft light of the afternoon. He held it out toward Ethan without explanation, and after a brief hesitation, Ethan took it, unsure what he was supposed to learn from something so simple. The glass felt light in his hand at first, almost meaningless, and he looked back at the old man, expecting instructions, but the man only nodded, gently, as if to say, just hold it. Seconds passed, then minutes, and the quiet of the park seemed to stretch around him. Yet inside, Ethan's mind began to stir again, questioning, analyzing, trying to understand the point of this strange task. Why am I holding this? What does this prove? What am I supposed to see? But the man said nothing, his calm presence unchanged. As time went on, Ethan shifted his grip slightly, noticing the faint tension building in his arm, not painful yet, but no longer effortless either. And in that growing discomfort, a subtle awareness began to form, something small, almost unnoticeable, as if this simple act was pointing to something deeper he had not yet fully seen. After a while, the weight began to change, not in the glass, but in Ethan's arm. What once felt effortless now required attention. His grip tightened, his shoulders stiffened, and a quiet discomfort slowly spread, the kind that does not demand attention at first, but grows steadily if ignored. He shifted slightly, trying to ease the strain, but the relief never lasted, and the longer he held the glass, the more present the weight became, no longer invisible, no longer easy to dismiss. The old man finally spoke, his voice calm and steady. If you hold that for 10 minutes, what do you feel? Ethan answered honestly. Nothing much, just a little tension. The man nodded. And if you hold it for an hour, Ethan paused, imagining it, it would start to hurt. And if you hold it for the entire day, the man continued. Ethan exhaled slowly. It would become unbearable. I would not be able to hold it anymore. The old man looked at him gently, not correcting, not explaining, just allowing the realization to begin forming on its own. And in that quiet exchange, something inside Ethan started to shift, as if he was standing at the edge of understanding something simple, yet life-changing. The old man let the silence settle between them before speaking again, his eyes calm, his presence steady, and then he asked a question that seemed almost too simple. Has the weight of the glass changed? Ethan looked at it. Still the same clear water, still the same size. No, he said slowly. It is exactly the same. The man nodded gently. Then what changed? Ethan hesitated, feeling the tension in his arm, the strain that had quietly built over time. Me, he answered, almost surprised by his own words. The old man's soft smile deepened. Exactly, he said. The weight did not grow, but your ability to carry it did. And then he paused, allowing the meaning to sink in, before continuing in a calm, steady voice. Your thoughts are no different. At first they seem light, almost harmless, but the longer you hold on to them, the heavier they become, until they feel unbearable. Ethan stood still, the glass in his hand now feeling like something far more than just water, and in that moment, a quiet realization began to take shape inside him, not as a sudden answer, but as a truth he could feel, something he had been missing all along. The old man watched Ethan quietly, then spoke again, his voice gentle but firm. So tell me, what happens if you put the glass down? Ethan looked at it, his arm aching now, the answer obvious yet strangely difficult to accept. The pain would stop, he said, almost whispering. The man nodded. Exactly. Not because the glass disappeared, not because its weight changed, but because you chose to stop holding it. Ethan's fingers tightened slightly around the glass as those words settled deeper than he expected, because he realized something unsettling. He had never truly tried to put his thoughts down. He had only tried to carry them better, control them more, fix them faster, but never release them. The old man continued. his gaze calm and unwavering. You believe peace comes from solving everything, from controlling every outcome. But peace comes from knowing what is not yours to hold. And in that moment, Ethan felt the quiet truth behind those words, not as an idea, but as something real, something he could no longer ignore. And slowly, almost hesitantly, he began to understand that the chaos he feared was not the world around him, but the weight he refused to let go. For a moment, Ethan stood there, feeling the weight in his hand. But now it was different, no longer just discomfort, but a choice he had been unaware of his entire life. Slowly, almost carefully, he lowered his arm and placed the glass down beside him. And in that simple action, something shifted inside him. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just a quiet release, like a breath he did not realize he had been holding. The world around him did not change. The park was the same, the distant sounds still there, life still moving forward as it always had. But within him, there was space, a small but undeniable sense of calm that had nothing to do with fixing anything. The old man watched silently, as if he had been waiting for this moment all along, and Ethan understood without needing more words that peace was never about controlling everything around him. It was about knowing when to stop carrying what was never meant to be held forever. And as he stood there, lighter than he had felt in a long time, a new question quietly took the place of all the others. Not how do I control everything, but what else have I been holding that I can finally let go of?